once we get that right, which is for me the most important thing, that they have, first of all, respect. The second one is commitment. The third one, passion. Those three ingredients are non-negotiable.
Hello and welcome into the Non-Negotiables podcast. I'm Gavin and I'm here tonight with Justin. How you doing, Jazz?
I am great, Gav. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Anything exciting happening or going on in the world of the Netherlands?
It is warm today, which is nice.
Yeah, well, you've been missing that, right? Going from South Florida to mainland Europe, you don't quite get the same warmth.
No, definitely not. And it's funny because I didn't think the winter was that bad. It only dropped below freezing, a couple times. But I've actually been pretty shocked about the summer because we've been in the, teens Celsius for a lot of June and July. But today we're, 25 C. It's nice. It's hot. So yeah, can't complain.
Yeah, it's a similar climate to England, really. It's very temperate. Yeah. You don't get the extreme colds, but you don't really get the extreme heat. No hurricanes, that's nice.
Yeah, no hurricanes.
Especially for the windmills, because they could get dangerous.
Yep.
So, yeah, good stuff. All right, mate. Well, let's crack in then. So, the Euros finished. Spain beat England 2-1. Best team won. No arguments about it. I was very drunk by the final whistle, so I don't really remember that much about the second half of the game. We went to Das Biergarten in Abacoa, if you know that place.
Nice. Yeah, I know it.
Yeah, yep. there was some IPAs flowing, and so by the end of the game, I was nicely numb, shall we say? But yeah, like I said,
I remember some of the group me messages. Yeah, they were great. Yeah,
I don't remember sending those. But yeah, no, the best team won, no doubt. I thought Nico Williams was the star performer again. I'm not quite sure how Rodri got player of the tournament. I think there were 5 Spaniards better than him. Nico Williams and Yamal would definitely have been higher than me. The central midfielders, Dani Olmo, would definitely have been higher. Yep. So I don't know, but Rodri seems to have this thing at the minute, right, where everything's all about Rodri all the time. I'm not quite sure where that comes from. I mean, he went off at half time and no one noticed. So I don't really get that bit.
I'm a bit torn on it. I agree with what you're saying 100% because it is true. And I, at the same time, I like that, like the 6 or the defensive midfielder is getting, more praise for what they do, because hasn't it been the thing? I mean, I remember hearing this for the past 20 years or so, a good defensive midfielder or a 6, because you're not remembering them. They're doing their job well.
It's the old saying, right? If you can watch the game and not see Busquets, but if you see Busquets, you see the game.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that, and I get it. But I think for me, the player of the tournament was probably Fabian Ruiz. I thought Ruiz and Olmo were absolutely brilliant in that Spain midfield. And like I said, Williams and Yamal both caught the eye. But it was with the team of the tournament, Juz. How mad was that team of the tournament? Kyle Walker, I think, had probably the worst tournament I can remember an England player having since maybe Phil Neville in Euro 2000, I think it was. And he gets in a right back. And then you've got Musiala playing up front when he never was up front at all for Germany. Never. And I thought, and Musiala was good for a couple of games. He disappeared in a couple of games. He was fine. And it was, I mean, I think it was a pretty poor tournament overall. I think it was a poor tournament with some good moments.
It was very poor.
Yeah, and I don't think there was many standouts, but that team of the tournament, man, I was like, just pick the Spain team if you're going to do that. Like, don't throw Kyle Walker in it, especially when Dani Carvajal actually had one of the better tournaments for fullbacks.
Yeah, I remember seeing it, but I'm just pulling it up again now.
And Granit Xhaka wasn't in it either, and I thought Granit Xhaka was a standout midfielder at this time. And I'm a bit biased when it comes to Granit. We all know that, but he was brilliant. I thought he was better than Rodri. I would have gone with Xhaka, Fabian Ruiz, and Dani Olmo in that midfield, to be quite honest with you. But you know, it is what it is. Team of the tournaments don't really matter. It was more the Kyle Walker inclusion that made me laugh. Like when I thought it was a joke when people started circulating it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember he had like the first assist for the first England goal in the tournament, right? I believe. And but other than that, I mean, I'm one of those people that probably would have started Trent, it right back, but
well, you and 65 million English people. Like I don't think there's anyone that wouldn't have started Trent in that final with how bad Walker had been throughout the tournament. But and then to get in team of the tournament, I don't know. I don't get it.
Or here's an even crazier idea. I don't know. Maybe Ben White.
So Southgate's resigned, right? And I do want to say a couple of bits in this. First off, I don't think Southgate is a very good manager. But I don't think you have to be a very good manager at international level. I just don't think it's what it's about. Like Germany's best manager of the last 30 odd years is Jogi Löw, who achieved nothing at club level. And you can't say he's a great manager, but he's a good tournament manager, right? And then you've got Spain just won the Euros with a guy I've never heard of because he come up through the basically the Spanish FA ranks.
Yep.
Southgate himself was a pretty poor manager at Middlesbrough, but he's a good FA man, so he got the job. And he's been England's most successful manager since Alf Ramsey. I mean, no matter what you think of him, he's won more knockout games in international tournaments than England had in the previous half century combined. So you can knock Southgate, but you can't knock his record. I think what's going to happen here is the FA are going to end up with a better manager than Southgate, who gets worse results.
I think you're probably right. Yeah, I mean, what are you hearing about the talk? I mean, obviously Potter is going to be hot, but I've even heard a couple foreign coaches.
Yeah, there's been a couple of foreign coaches mentioned. I know there was a story came out that the English FA were happy to wait around a year for Guardiola. That's not happening. Guardiola ain't walking out of the Man City job and into the England job. Same thing with Jurgen Klopp. They'd be happy to wait a year for Jurgen Klopp and appoint Lee Carsley in the interim. The Graham Potter links are always going to be there. He's out of work. He makes a lot of sense. The Eddie Howe links don't make much sense to me. I don't know why Eddie Howe would take the England job. I certainly wouldn't if I was Eddie Howe. Mind you, I wouldn't take the Newcastle job either, and Eddie Howe did because he's got no morals. So I don't know. Maybe he would do it, and that would be weird, right? Because like Gareth Southgate, for anything you say, he's a moralistic guy. He seems like a really nice guy. To go from to Eddie Howe, who's obviously a massive cunt and has no morals whatsoever. Like that would be a huge U-turn.
Yeah, I think so as well. Yeah, it'll be an interesting one to watch because I do think Southgate was maybe the right manager at the right time for like unifying this group right after a few bad appointments, right? Hodgson and
and Capello and Sven we've had a lot of we had that little spell right where I think we had two managers that both left for non-footballing reasons that would have been great England managers. You had Terry Venables and then Glenn Hoddle, and both of those, Spurs guys or not, both of those would have been great England managers. I think that England squad between 96 and 2006, maybe even 2010. Those were better squads than this squad. They're better players than these players are. There might be one or two players in these squads that hit the heights, but in general, those squads had less weaknesses and they were better squads. But they also had better managers. Venables and Hoddle would have been great managers. England were very unlucky in Euro 96. England were incredibly unlucky in France 98 when Beckham was ridiculously sent off and they were still the better team against Argentina. But since then, we've really had nothing as speaking as an Englishman. The managers have been poor. Sven come in. Sven was kind of similar to Southgate in the style of football. It was very, very boring, and he had a lot better players than he could make use of. Capello was just bad. He was just bad. Hodgson was bad. McLaren was bad. Southgate came in and kind of turned everything around, and like you said, a lot of it was bringing the group together and being a moral leader. And that works also with young players, right? Like this England squad is still very, very young, but when Southgate got them, they were incredibly young. So you kind of need that kind of leader. And I think people misunderstand what international football is, right? You're not playing a league season, first of all. Every 2 years, you play a knockout competition, right? So you're basically playing the FA Cup every 2 years. It's not the same job. You also don't get the time to impose a system like Pep Guardiola. Maybe he can walk into Spain and those players are so technically good, they'll pick up what he wants straight away. I'm not convinced of that. I am convinced that if he went into that England team, they would not be able to pick it up straight away. The stuff that they demand of their players, people like Arteta and like Guardiola, that takes a long, long time to put together, and international managers do not get that sort of time. So I think it's a very, very difficult beast to pick a good international manager.
I think that what you just said about Guardiola and Arteta kind of applies to Potter too, maybe at a lesser extent.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it does. He's a project manager.
Yeah, he seems objectively to me, an outsider, of course, but objectively to me, he seems the most talented English manager at the time right now, right? Just by nationality. But I think he would struggle in international football because he wouldn't, have that time with the squad to get, his. But I mean, I know Chelsea hurt its stock, and I'm not even trying to reference the Chelsea.
I think one of the problems that you do have to think about at Chelsea is that the stories are, and we don't know that this is true, right? So we could be completely barking up the wrong tree, but part of the stories that we heard were that he had a problem with egos. You don't get many more bigger egos than dealing with one of the biggest countries in international football. So if that was a problem for him at Chelsea, it's going to be an even bigger problem at international level.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's you can't really even control it, I guess, as well, because I mean your player pool is your player pool, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean, Pep can't go and spend 100 million quid on fullbacks just because he ain't got a left back that he likes.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I think that would be pretty tough for Potter, and maybe he's learned a lot, from the Chelsea stint, but yeah, I don't know. I think maybe somebody with a little bit more tactical nous than Southgate, but not necessarily a system guy, would be the best appointment. Again, just as an outsider.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to rush it. I wouldn't be surprised to see Lee Carsley put in charge of the international break, the stupid international break at the end of August, right? Like literally, we start the season, we play a couple of games, and then we break. I wouldn't be surprised to see Lee Carsley take charge of that. Lee Carsley, by the way, who's got 40 odd caps for the Republic of Ireland. I wouldn't be surprised to see him take over that role temporarily. I'll be brief on this because I think everyone's heard me talk about this a million times, but I don't believe you should ever hire a foreign coach. When I say foreign, I want to clarify that too. To me, if Mikel Arteta took the England job, I'd obviously be very pissed. But I would be fine with that. Mikel Arteta has been brought up in England for the most part of it. He's played and managed here for the best part of 20 years. He's got links to the country. I don't have an issue with that. He's eligible for citizenship. He could take citizenship next week if he wanted to. He's been there that long. I don't have.
Yeah, he could have played, right? He could have played for England.
He could have played for England, yes. Yeah. So I have no issue with that. I wouldn't have a massive issue with Klopp either because he's managed in the Premier League for the best part of 10 years. Again, I believe he would be eligible for citizenship if he wanted it because he'd worked in the country for that long. I would have less of a problem with a Klopp. But when you're talking about people like the way England got Ericsson and the way England got Capello, people who had been to the country for like 3 days. In fact, I don't even think Capello had been in England other than for a football match before he came in. To me, that's ludicrous. We can't just go and take Erling Haaland, right? Because England don't have a good centre forward. Why should you be able to go get your manager from everywhere? To me, it completely goes against what national football's supposed to be. It's supposed to be our best versus your best. And if our best need to be managed by someone from somewhere else, to me, it completely wipes out any point that international football had. Any virtue that it carried is gone if you're bringing foreign coaches in. It's no different to me to bring in foreign players in. I don't understand what the difference is, and I don't understand why it's allowed.
This is something that you have slowly won me over on to the point where I really don't like foreign coaches at all. In the international sport, like as an American, we've dealt with it. We had Jurgen Klinsmann very recently, I should say. Sorry, and I feel like most people were happy about that appointment at the time. But again, he did have American ties. I think he was living in LA, had an American wife.
Yeah, he's someplace for America.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, Jonathan.
Yeah, he's goalkeeper for. He was at the Galaxy. I don't know where he is now, but he was at the Galaxy, and he's been capped for the US.
But there's been a lot of talk about the US turning down Marcelo Bielsa for keeping Berhalter. And I just, I actually was a bit upset when I first heard that news, but now I'm kind of with you. It would feel kind of pirate.
Yeah, I just don't see how it can be. Like you can't, like I said, like England have got obviously some problem positions. Centre forward being one because Harry Kane is either not fit or just doesn't fit the system, whatever. But you can't just go out and recruit a forward from somewhere else because of that. So why can you do it with a manager? I don't get it. To me, it ceases to be country versus country if all of a sudden we have, I don't know, we have a Danish guy in charge of the England team. What's that got to do with England? Like I don't get it. If you're someone that just says, well, I just want to win at all costs, that's fine. But to me, I don't know. It just seems silly. I think it completely dilutes what it's supposed to be. And then it becomes something else, right? If you're going to do that, just do the Premier League. Scrap international football and have league versus league if you're going to do that. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, rant on that over. Jazz, anything else, takeaways from the tournament you want to talk about before we move on to pre-season?
No, not really, Gaff. I'd say just kind of let it breathe. It wasn't the best international tournament. I agree with you. I think Spain probably was.
Who would have been your player at tournament? I said mine would have been probably Ruiz over Danny Olmo and Nico Williams and Yamal. Who would have been your player at the tournament?
Olmo stood out to me quite a bit. Ruiz did as well, but I know these always lean towards goal scorers and stuff like that.
You love a winger too, don't you? Like you love a dribbly winger. It's kind of your thing. So
yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah. So yeah, probably Olmo, but I do think Saliba was incredibly impressive. Going back to the whole Arsenal thing we do here.
Yes.
I know France didn't make it as far as probably a lot. I mean, I thought they were going to be at least in the finals, but after that pre-tournament, I mean, of course. But Saliba did lock down that defense. He was very, very good, and I'm proud of him. I'm glad he made the tournament of the team, and or the team of the tournament, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, so we leave for the US tour on over the weekend, Juz. Obviously, the players have already been in Marbella. The captain, Martin Odegaard, has been there. Nelson Smith-Rowe have been there. Carl Jacob Hein, I believe, was there too. So all the guys who basically didn't have summer tournaments, they'll all be on that plane going out there. There'll be a few players meeting up later. Zinchenko and Kivior went out at the group stage, I believe. Poland went out at the group stage, right? So they should be joining up. They might even be there for the Manchester United game. I think some of the other boys that went out earlier in the knockout.
I saw Jesus. Jesus was with the group already.
Yeah, because he's actually been doing his summer training at Palmeiras out in Brazil. Okay. So and he looked fit and ready. He had no operation, by the way. I don't know if you saw this, but he didn't do the knee operation. So we'll see. We'll see how that holds up. I think we need him this season, to be honest with you. I think he would be someone that would really push us over the edge. I think a lot of that, we said a few times last season that we were missing that one explosive player. And I kind of feel like what we were missing was the Gabriel Jesus that we had for that first 4 months.
Yeah, I mean, we would have done, I think, maybe even title. Yeah, if we had that Jesus.
Because the Jesus that started up front in the game we lost against Villa, whatever about moving Kai Havertz back into midfield and shouldn't have done this, shouldn't have done that. But that Jesus was not the Jesus that we signed.
No, definitely not. And I do worry about him, electing to not do the surgery. I mean, at the end of the day, it's his body, and
but we're not doctors, right? So
we're not doctors. What we can
do is watch how this plays out this season and see if he gets that explosiveness back and that movement back. Because if he does, then I think I still think he's the best centre forward at the club. If he gets that back, he's a different type of forward to Havertz, obviously, and you can say it's horses for courses, and there's games we could use both, and you can move Jesus around. But I do think that that's something that we're going to have to look at closely this season and see how it goes. There was no chance. I know James McNicholas said late on in the season that Arsenal would be happy to move on from Jesus if we got an offer. But let's be fair, we were never getting an offer for a player that's looked like that in the last year because the explosiveness was just gone. And if that's gone, then it's done. So we're going to have to see how this plays out. The goalkeeping situation for the tour, Juz. So obviously,
this is odd.
Yeah, Ramsdale and Raya made the final. They're basically not going to be on the US tour at all. Carl Jacob Heine is going to go out on loan. But I fully expect that to be at the end of this tour because someone has got to play in goal. And they haven't called me. So I'm assuming that it's going to be Carl Hein. Tommy Setford should be signing from Ajax before we go, we think. So he's probably going to be out there and we might see a few minutes from him. But he is coming in as a youth team goalkeeper. He's not coming in as a backup. He's not coming in as the third choice. He is coming in as a youth team goalkeeper, same as the Danish guy that we signed from Midtjylland a few weeks ago. Who will probably also be on the tour just because there's no one else. The only other option is if we get Dan, not David Bentley, in from Wolves, right? If we can get that deal over the line, then maybe he goes out and starts a few games.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. You don't
think we'll get that done in time?
I mean, it's like we offered like what 50,000,
50 grand, yeah, and they were asking for $1 million.
Yeah, so
I mean, unless it's one of them, and I mean, you're quite far apart when you. I mean, it's not a lot of money if you're talking about a £70 million transfer. Then $1 million, it's like whatever. But when you're talking about one end's $1 million and one end's 50 grand, like unless everyone gets together and says, whatever, let's meet in the middle at 500 grand. I think this has got to be quite a tough negotiation because both sides have set their stall out, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm kind of feeling that way. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. I think at best he'd be third choice, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, he's coming in to be third choice. I don't know that we can move Ramsdale, so I think Ramsdale might end up spending the season as second choice, which I think, by the way, might be the worst option of all. It's worse for him. I just don't think it's
worse for him.
It's a good move. But if Ramsdale goes, we would still be needing a second choice, even if Bentley came in as third choice. Because like we said, Hines going on loan, Setford will be the youth team goalkeeper. And if Bentley comes in, he's coming in as third choice, not second choice. So if Ramsdale goes, he would have to be replaced. And like I said, they're not going to be on the tour. So
yeah, keeper is a bit of a strange situation, but I do think that if nothing else, it gives these young guys. Well, I mean, I don't know if Hein is like a young guy anymore, but it gives these guys
terms he is, right? He's 22, I think. So he's still a young guy in goalkeeper terms.
But he's got more appearances for his country than he does for his club, which is really unusual.
Well, it happens sometimes though. We had a Lithuanian striker years ago come through called Thomas de Villenicius or something like that, and he was I'm going back to like the late 90s, early 2000s here, and he was the same. He had like 30 odd Lithuanian caps and never played for Arsenal. I think Seb Larsson might have got Swedish caps before he left us, and he'd never played for us other than in the Coca-Cola Cup. So so it does happen with a smaller.
It does happen,
but it's not very often, and he's an interesting one where he goes on loan next year. I know you love to follow the loan players, so that will be an interesting one next year, seeing how he does wherever he goes.
Yeah, I think so. And the English kid from Ajax, I know it's kind of flown a little bit under the radar, but from all accounts, it sounds pretty. He sounds pretty promising. You always have to wonder why, like an English kid would leave the English system.
Well, I don't think he did leave the English system. I think he was brought up in Holland. I don't think he's English because he's got an English passport. He may have English parents, but I don't think he's English. I think he's he plays for England, but I think he did most of his growing up in Holland. I don't think it was a case of leaving the English system to go to Ajax. I think he was living in Holland as a kid and they found him.
That's interesting. I need to do a little bit more research into like his well, I don't want to say like his personal life, but yeah, I mean,
no, he's history, if you like, to figure out where and why he is. But his younger brother is also at Ajax, by the way, and a goalkeeper.
Yeah, so you're probably right then. His family probably hopped over or what maybe like a Dutch mom and an English dad or something like that.
Yeah, he was, funnily enough, Juz, he was born pretty close to where you're sitting right now. He was born in Harlem.
Oh, that is where I'm sitting right now.
So he's been brought up there. So it's not a case. It's not a Sonny Pike scenario. If you don't know Sonny Pike, it's a very interesting story. Google it, go read it, because it's an interesting one. But no, he was brought up there. The youth team players, Juz, you expecting any of them on a tour? I mean, I guess we're all expecting Nwaneri, probably Lewis Skelly and Charles Sago Jr. Right? Are they the three? Are you thinking anyone else might make the trip?
I think those are going to be the three. I think,
there's
Rural Walters.
There's going to be some numbers making up, right? Like you said, last year, you would expect Rural Waters to be there. He's gone now. Koji Dubry, he's gone now. But the US tour last year, we really didn't take the youngsters, right? Like that was one of the big things. We didn't take them. So it's, I'm intrigued to see what ones do end up going out there. But I think they're the three.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think they'll be the ones that, are going to be getting the most play time too, not even just, members of the squad. What do you think about Patino? Do you think he's going to feature majorly, or do you think
so this is an interesting one, right? Because and we'll get onto this in the second part more, but I lump Patino in with Smith Rowe and Nelson for sure, and maybe Nketiah, in players that I don't really expect to be with us or part of the first team squad come opening day. But we've had so many players away that we need numbers out there. So I would expect, if a deal isn't done, and with Patino, we've heard nothing. So if a deal isn't done before the weekend when we leave, then I expect him to be on the plane.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. And it is that position too, that we're already kind of short when everybody is there, kind of like that left 8 or 6.
It maybe get some game time, and we'll see. I mean, let's be fair. We've seen a lot of stuff written about Charlie Patino, but in the last 4 years, it is fair to say, I think, that he hasn't kicked on the way a lot of people expected or wanted. He's a player that hasn't particularly stood out in championship teams. He's been on the bench a lot at Swansea, and he was better at Blackpool. But he hasn't set the world light. He hasn't kicked on. So it'll be interesting to see, surrounded by some better players, if you like, how he actually looks. Because, you would have thought a few years ago, the way everyone was talking about him, that he would be either in the first team by now, or we'd have clubs beating down the door to sign him. And that's just not the case. That we would have sold him by now if clubs were beating down the door. They're just not.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think it's a little bit more of a difficult position for a youngster to grow into, similar to like a center back.
It's easier to start wide, right? Like Wenger always used to start these kids wide before moving into the middle. It's easier to be on the periphery than be right in the middle. It's why someone like Cesc Fabregas is such an anomaly.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I feel for the kid, but I think it probably is going to be best for him to move on at this point, just because of his history of loans in the championship. But I mean, it is one of those things where you never know. I mean, if he really impresses in preseason or whatever,
thrown in a couple of injuries. I mean, look, we got Thomas Partey, so there's an injury coming there. Jorginho's getting older. If he doesn't go, if the offer doesn't come in, who knows what's going on? We've seen it before. We saw it before with Francis Coquelin. Right, where he was basically out of the door. Alex Song, basically out the door. Injury crisis. They need playing. So we'll see. So this tour could be quite big for some players that we're not expecting it to be big for.
Yep. Yeah, that's a really good point. And Coquelin is a crazy story, because I mean, he was at Charlton Athletic.
Same as Alex Song. Yeah, and we end up calling him back because of an injury crisis, and they end up making half a career at Arsenal for a while. Yep. All right, mate. Well, let's end the first half there. Second half, we'll get into some transfers and stuff. So we will see you after the break.
All right, mate.
Hey guys, just a couple of quick halftime messages for you. Firstly, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. It really helps us reach a wider audience, particularly on Apple Podcasts. Secondly, we're on all the social media platforms as the NN Pod. We're really trying to build a strong Gooner community. So next time you're on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, look us up, give us a like or a follow, send us a message, interact with other listeners, or just have a look around. Thanks for listening from myself, Paz and Juz. We really appreciate it.
Welcome back into the Non-Negotiables podcast. This is part 2. Just all of the noise around at the minute seems to be centered on outgoings. I've heard that basically we are looking to get players out before we get players in. Makes a lot of sense. We've bought a lot of players over the last few years, and I think importantly, we've bought players early and we've got them in before we've got players out. And I think we've expected players to leave that haven't, right? So I think this squad needs thinning.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. And I think there has been a what do you always say? Like if you ask the manager, of course he's going to want those players.
Yeah, managers and holders.
Yep. But I think there's a couple, especially some of the Hale End kids that we've held on to maybe a little too long. That maybe we would have expected to leave already. But yeah, I do think that there is a number of players that it's probably time we move out and kind of replace, just to, if nothing else, bring in fresh blood. I think our first 11 is pretty solid for a title contending team, but there's always improvements to be made.
Yeah, the fact that we haven't been able to move players out in summers past, right, where we've expected maybe an Eddie to move, where we've expected Tourney to be gone, where we've expected permanent moves for people like Tavares and maybe even Patino to an extent. I think that weighs heavily on the minds, right? Because you're worried you're going to bring in 5 more players, and all of a sudden we're back to the stage where we were at when we had the players we were trying to get rid of before, who were there on exercise bikes after everyone else had finished training using the facilities, because we've got nothing to do with them.
Yeah, look, I love Arteta and Edu, and I think especially as far as incomings go, they've done a brilliant job. Hardly any of our transfers have been amiss the past couple seasons. I do, though, Gav, I've got to question some of these 100K per week deals we've handed out to like Eddie and Reese. I don't know. There's just been a couple questionable things. I don't know if Tourney was necessarily mismanaged, because he's been injury prone. But there's been some poor decision making going with squad retention and outgoings, I think, that do kind of dim the light on the incomings, if you will.
Yeah, I get it. I tell you what, let's talk about the ones that have happened first, right? Because we'll start with Nuno Tavares, because I think everyone agrees that this is a pretty good deal for us. He's gone out. Lazio are obviously covering all of his wages. There is a small loan fee, and then it gets turned permanent if, and this is a big part, if he meets certain criteria in the loan. I don't know what those criteria are. Apparently, they are criteria that the club feel are basically inevitable. It's probably going to be like if he plays 20 games, whatever it is. It is an obligation, but it isn't quite done. I think if he doesn't hit those, then I think this is a disaster. But I think we all think that he's going to, and assuming that he does hit the criteria and it gets turned permanent, somewhere between 6 and 7 mil plus, I believe, a 20% sell-on clause. Anything on top of that, this is a good deal, Jazz.
Yeah, I think so, Gav. Honestly, if he just has another place to maybe shine just a little bit brighter, where they're paying 100% of his wages and we're getting a loan fee, I'm 100% fine with that. You always want the deal done. Don't get me wrong. So I'm not giving it like an A+ or anything, but I have no problem with this as long as we're not covering wages or waiving a loan fee, and there is a like an optional deal on the table.
Yeah, an obligational deal, I think, is more the thing, because we'll go on to the other one now, which is Sambi to Sevilla. Again, there is a loan fee. They are covering all of his wages, so that's good. There's a 12 million fee with a sell-on negotiated on the other end, but it is optional. There is no way this gets turned permanent by anything that happens. It would have to be Sevilla basically exercising that option. I mean, I don't know what percentage would you put on these deals actually being turned permanent. I mean, it's probably less than 20% of these loan deals with options that ever get turned permanent, right?
Yeah, mate. I don't like this one near as much as Tavares, mostly because it's one of those things, right? I think he will be more successful in Spain than he was in England. Just the pace alone, and he really shown in the technical department of like being able to ping some passes and stuff like that. I think it's confidence at the end of the day that really wore him down. So I think if he lights it up, Sevilla is going to get him for 12 million euro. And if he doesn't, we're going to be stuck with him again, and his value is just, he's going to go on loan for a 7 million euro option the next season. But this deal it's not great. I don't love it. Yeah.
I get that. But I think that a lot of these loan deals you can only judge in hindsight. And I know we say it a lot and it's fence sitting and blah, 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 but it's true, right? Like you got to point to Amari Hutchinson at Chelsea going to Ipswich, right? He goes to Ipswich, he has a good season, Ipswich get promoted, they get 21 million for him. If Ipswich had not have got promoted, Chelsea would not have got 21 million for Amari Hutchinson. They got it because he played for the club that came up and were flush with cash. Had Luton stayed up, they would have bought Sambi Lokonga because they'd have had the money, right?
Yeah, you're probably right. Yep.
But we all knew Luton were going down. So when you look back on that loan, was that a good loan? I mean, he played well for the time he wasn't injured. The injury you can't blame him for, and he played well, and they loved him at Luton. But the odds on Luton staying up were so small that the odds on them actually being able to turn that permanent were tiny. And I think on that basis, you have to look at that Luton loan and say that's a bad loan. And I think sometimes Chelsea got lucky with the Amari Hutchinson one. I don't think we got unlucky with the Luton one because I think you could see that coming. And I think we should have been looking for a better club to loan him to. If he'd have gone to Burnley, by the way, who were worse than Luton, you could say, well, a lot of people thought Burnley were going to stay up. So I kind of see why you did that. Luton went down and we all knew they were going down.
We all knew. Yeah.
So to me, that's a bad loan. And so I think a lot of this, it's not necessarily do Sevilla buy him at the end of it. It's do Sevilla play him, and do they give him the platform to perform on? That's how you're going to tell the success of this loan. Because Sambi, 12 million, I think, is still a low fee for Sambi.
I do too. Yeah.
So, I mean, I would take it right now because why not? What else have you got? We have had the loan fee from Luton and stuff for him. So we end up making back what we paid when you take that into account. So I would sell him for that, but I do think it's a good deal. But even if they don't exercise it, if someone else comes in, then I think this is a good loan. If, like you said, he doesn't get the opportunities and we end up back with him trying it in the same position again next summer, then it's a bad loan.
Yes, Sambi is tough, I think, because this is a player, Gav, that I think we did not set up to succeed, as a club.
No, 100% we didn't. Those players that come in at that time, and you can put Tavares in with this as well. We found them because they came in and they weren't ready to come into the team, and we came in and put them in the team when they should have been going out on loan, and we waited to send them out on loan for a year or two. So we fouled them, not they fouled us.
We threw Sambi in to be the lone six to for in Party's absence. That's insane.
And then got surprised when he got ripped apart at Old Trafford. We put them in a position to foul. Yeah. And again, we talked about this last week. This is where we've got to be smarter. But I also think we need to be a little bit luckier. We went through the Norton Cuffy deal last week when Coventry lost the playoff final. Otherwise, they would probably have bought him, and we'd have been looking at a similar deal to the Hutchinson one. So we've got to be smarter with these loans. We've got to be better, but I think we also have to be a little bit luckier. and at the end of the day, I mean, you can take the old Gary Player quote, right? The harder I practice, the luckier I get. And I think you kind of have to look at that, and you have to say, look, we've just got to be smarter about where we send these players out on loan. Because Nuno to Forest, that was never a good loan. It was a bad loan, sending him to a basket case club. And I think Sambi to Luton also, in retrospect, was a bad loan because they were never going to be able to turn that permanent because they were never going to stay up. So I think you have to look at these loans and do them better. The other
I agree.
Go on, no, go.
Oh, I just real quick. I just want to say though, I do like that the club is making these moves still. I like the Sambi and Nuno transfers. I know it's a lot of money nowadays. Let's just call Sambi 20 million. I know it was like 18 with add-ons or whatever, but 20 million gamble on Sambi, who was really highly rated, by company and in Belgium, and in Tavares as well, who was shit defensively. We all knew that, but a decent spark offensively, for 9 million, I think, if I remember correctly. I hope the clubs still make these gambles, and I know it's a lot of money now, but just adding in like football inflation, it's really not. It's very minor. And I just because we got burnt with 2, I do hope we still kind of make these gambles from time to time.
Well, and spoiler alert, we'll be talking about this in a little bit too. But I'd rather spend 20 million on Sambi than 20 million on Mikel Merino. So, and we'll delve into why later on. But that's
just a great point.
That's where I am on that. All right. So the other players, we know that Fulham actually came in with an actual bid for Smith Rowe. I have no idea how much it is. No idea at all. I've heard 15 million. I've heard 25 plus 5. So I have no idea how much it is. We just know that the bid went in. West Ham have made contact over Reece Nelson. There's been no bid, but the clubs have spoken about him. And Marseille did speak to us about Eddie. I am not 100% that Marseille's interest is genuine, rather than just trying to force the Mason Greenwood transfer through, like we said before. There's the talk of Nketiah to Palace, but question on this. So Nketiah to Palace has been going around for a few years. Is he basically their Sebastian Frey?
Yes.
Yeah, so Palace pods just sit there and they talk about, oh, well, we're going to sign Eddie Nketiah this week.
Yeah, no, I really do think so. It's a transfer that
it's never going to happen, is it? Like I can almost guarantee at this point that Eddie Nketiah, no matter where he goes, it will not be Crystal Palace. It's been talked about for so long that it's just not real. It's been talked into. It's a bit like Newcastle and Tierney, right? I think it's just been talked into existence, even though it's never actually been real.
Yeah, it's totally a fan prophesied transfer that's never going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. So let's start with Reece in this bunch, because I think Reece is the one that
he's got to go, right? He's got to go.
And this interest from West Ham is genuine. We know that it is. We know that it is genuine interest. The fees that have been spoken about have shocked me. I'll be honest with you, because I've been hearing that West Ham would be willing to go up to 25 million, and I am shocked by that, and I would bite their hands off at 25 million. Same. I said last week I would take 15 million and a good sell-on clause. I would take 10 million and a good sell-on clause for Reece, to be quite honest with you.
Same. Yep. Especially after we gave him 100K a week.
Yeah, exactly. Just getting that off the wage bill to free that up, and he gets to move on and play. It's a good deal for him, and I like Reece.
Stay in London. Yeah.
And he's a London homeboy. He wants to stay in London. He doesn't want to leave London. And I do think there's a good chance that he's a success at West Ham. I think West Ham are a funny club. It's hard to tell who's going to be and who's not going to be a success at West Ham. I just think they're a weird club like that. They buy decent players and they're fucking terrible, and then they buy bang average players and their fans love them. I can't really work out West Ham.
Yeah.
And
who's that? The big bastard that plays 6? I can't remember his name right now.
Souček?
Yeah. He's a great example, right? I feel like the fans love him, but
awful player. I mean, you had that Aaron Cresswell, another one, awful player, but they loved him. Then Michael Dawson. Was it Michael Dawson or Craig Dawson? I mean, Craig Dawson.
Craig Dawson. Yeah.
Craig Dawson. They loved him there. So you never know who's going to make it or not. Scamacca went there and barely got a kick.
Yeah, but he started for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird place to go. So I'm never sure how that's going to work out. It does seem to be a fit there for them, especially if Kudus moves into the middle after Paqueta gets banned or sold. And then it leaves an opening on the left, right? You got Jared Bowen out on the right, and if Reese is on the other side, then that looks
that's a damn fine.
Yeah, I think so too. That looks very exciting from their point of view, but I know it's a tough one. Would you be? I know you'd be open to the sale. Obviously, have you been surprised about the numbers?
I have a little bit. Yeah, Gav, I'm with you, mate. I was thinking, man, 7-8 mil, we'd be lucky. But
so Bernard Wemmer was talking with me about this earlier on in the week when they were first linked, and he said that at 25 or 30 million, he thinks that's insane, and it's just interesting to get the other side perspective.
No, yeah, of course, yeah.
And I said to him, look, I don't disagree with you. I said for us, what I would like to see a good deal for us, I think would be 15 million and then 25% of anything you get above that if he hits and he goes on somewhere else. And he's like, yeah, I'd be happy with that. I think that'd be a good deal. So I think that's kind of the sweet spot. That's where it would be a good deal for everyone. Obviously, we're not negotiating, but I think when you've got a compromise like that from two sides, I think that's kind of where it'd be. And I think that would be a great deal for us. I think it'd be a great deal for them. And as providing Reese gets the chance there, he's got to jump.
I agree. Yeah, I think that'd be a brilliant deal for everybody, for Reese, for Arsenal, for West Ham. I mean, we'd be crazy to ask for any more, really. But he's got potential to rise above that fee as well.
Yeah, it has to be, right? Like West Ham can't be. This is the problem, right? We talk about how bad we've been at sales, and it's true. But why are we expecting people to give us money for Skodran Mustafi? Why are we expecting people to give us money for the ghost of Alex Lacazette? Why would we be expecting people to give us money for Kolasinac? Why would we be expecting people to give us money for a basically already retired Mesut Ozil that's just cashing checks? Do you know what I mean? Like you can't say this player's shit, we don't want him. Now you give us 50 million for him. Unless you're Liverpool and Bournemouth, that's not how this shit works.
Yeah. And we really have been shit at selling.
We've been really bad at buying. We've had really bad players that we've been trying to sell. Until Arteta was forced to change direction, and he was forced 100% post Willian. Until that point, our signings were bad signings. We were breaking records for Mustafi. We were spending all this money on Bernd Leno, and then immediately, and then Martinez is there, and Martinez is one of our best ever sales. But we were making bad signings. Even Xhaka, like we brought Xhaka in with no plan whatsoever.
Wenger didn't even know what
position.
position.
Really good was pure luck. But we brought him in with no plan. Xhaka, we badly let Xhaka down.
And Mustafi was pure stat DNA, according to all the rumors.
So his stats were outrageous. What I heard, so we hit Mustafi's release clause of 35 million. At the time, I think he was like the fourth most expensive centre back of all time. Yeah. We hit that, and what I heard was when we made the call to Valencia to tell them we were activating that release clause, they had to mute their phones because they were laughing so much. That's what I heard. I can't guarantee that's true. But that's what I heard. They had to hit the mute button on their phones, the guys on the other end of the call, because they were pissing themselves laughing that we were paying that.
I mean, mate, Peter Lim ran club. I'm not surprised.
No, but, that was pre Peter Lim. I think that was pre. Yeah, that was pre Peter Lim. Yeah, that was before. But yeah, apparently they were just they just found it hilarious that we were going to pay that much for him. And it is. But this is what I'm saying. We bought a lot of bad players. Lucas Perez. Like, who's going to give you more than you paid for Lucas Perez? No one. Because you've overpaid in the first place for a player that shouldn't even be at Arsenal. And I think
he deserved more of a shot.
In the head?
I think he could have been.
Sorry, I shouldn't say that. That's not very politically correct. So move on from that. But no, Lucas Perez he just shouldn't have been playing for Arsenal. He's a championship. He wasn't even good enough for West Ham. Like, we paid 17 million quid for him. So I don't know. We made bad signings, and bad signings are hard to move. We had a lot of bad players we were trying to move on. So we'll see with the sales. This summer's going to be a big one because we do have a couple of saleable assets. One of them is obviously your boy, Emil Smith-Rowe.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get into that.
Yeah, the bid came in from Fulham. Like I said, we don't know what it is. What are you expecting this to be? Because I'm starting to... I just don't believe any of these numbers that are being bandied around. You know, I'm hearing now Arsenal are asking for 35 plus 10. I just don't see us getting anywhere near that for him. I don't know what Fulham's bid was, but I just think that's insane.
So I'm obviously biased here. He is my favorite player at the club. I love him. But with that being said, I don't know, man. You look at like Jordan Ibe, Solanke, you know, a lot of these young English guys.
Again, though, you're talking about Liverpool, Bournemouth, and I am not convinced that there wasn't something very underhanded going on there. I don't see how you can take these transfers from Liverpool to Bournemouth seriously. I don't.
And that's fine. That's fine. But Smith Rowe, without...
And also, I will say this. I don't think Smith Rowe's value can be as high as Solanke's was when he went, because when Solanke went, he hadn't been injured not played for 2 years and injured for a year before that. So I think
what was he doing for his club?
Doesn't matter. Smith Rowe is damaged goods. Solanke was unknown goods. They're two different things. Like
Smith Rowe's been fit since January.
He has, and he played 243 minutes last season. So that is Mikel Arteta telling you, I don't want to put this guy on the field.
I think that's dumb, you know, but whatever.
I don't disagree, but if you're the buying club, why would you pay that money for someone who obviously isn't wanted and has got that injury record and has played that few minutes?
I find this one the most interesting. Well, I mean, of course, but I find it the most interesting objectively because of what a lot of the backtracking, is it backtracking? I don't know. A lot of the statements the club is making where they'd be willing to sell, but they'd also be happy to keep. You're seeing a lot of that too, right? I mean, The Guardian, I saw The Guardian just put out an article earlier this morning that said that. And I think that is the case. I think they will sell Smith Rowe, but they're going to put a premium on the price. And if no club meets it, they're happy to keep him. And I think that's going to be the story with Smith Rowe.
He's never signing a new deal, right? He's got 2 years left. He's never signing a new deal.
I think he will.
You think he'd sign a new deal? If he signs a new deal, we should let him go on a free because he's got no ambition. Because he's never going to play more than 400 minutes for Arsenal. Never in a million years. 400 minutes a season is the absolute max he will ever get. He'll come on when someone else needs a rest and he'll start a game like Luton. He should not be staying at Arsenal. It shouldn't even be in his mind to stay at Arsenal. He will never be an Arsenal player. Like him or not.
He is a better left 8 than Havertz.
Doesn't matter. He'll never play there. And Havertz won't play there either. We'll buy someone else. But
it's so dumb.
He's never going to play. It's the same with Reece Nelson. He's never going to play. So if you stay, I question what you actually want out of your career because you are not going to play.
I guess I should have said, I don't think he'll sign no matter what, but I think if his situation improved, he would be more likely to re-sign for Arsenal than he would to go. He said he wanted to stay here.
How's his situation going to improve, though? This is the bit I don't get. I just don't see where there's any rose-tinted view of this. Like, we could have 9 injuries and he still won't play. Like, Arteta has shown you he will not play him. Basically, Emil Smith-Rowe is a midfield Kieran Tierney. Arteta has no interest at all in playing him, no matter what you or anyone else in the fan base thinks of him. Mikel Arteta has no interest in seeing Emil Smith-Rowe on the field in an Arsenal shirt. He's shown you it for years. It's not a one-off.
It's a dumbass take because he literally saved his job. But yeah, I mean,
but he won't play him.
Yeah,
he won't. There's something about him that he does not like as a player. I don't think it's as a person. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he hates Smith-Rowe and sends him dog shit through the mouth.
Oh, I'm not upset or anything.
I just don't.
Yeah,
he's off the ball about him as a player that Mikel Arteta does not want in his team, but he still wants to keep him around, which is the oddest part of it. Why are you keeping around a player that you do not want to play? Reece Nelson has started 1 game in 4 years. The fuck are you doing giving him $100,000 a week contract? And people can say, well, his contract was running down. Well, you let it get to that point. You obviously didn't care enough to re-up him a year before. So now you're re-upping him on the back of a Bournemouth goal. It just, to me, it makes no sense. And this is the bit of being bad sellers that these guys can control. I'm not blaming them for Mustafi, Aubameyang, Ozil, any of that shit that was bought before they got here. I don't blame them for that. I do blame them for these ones. Yeah, I blame them for these ones. I blame them for Ainsley Maitland-Niles. I blame them for Nketiah. I blame them for Smith-Rowe. I do blame them for these.
You think there's just this bit of I don't know, maybe they're both former. I mean, when I say they're both, I mean Edu and Arteta, former Arsenal players, and there's an emotional segment to this that maybe they're missing.
I don't, because
the Hill End kids.
Yeah, Mikel Arteta reminds me of a shark, though. He's almost got dead eyes. So I'm not
Mr.
sure
Wonderful.
I really buy that with Arteta. I just think, like we say before, right? Managers are holders. They'll hold on to everyone they can. And I think sometimes Arteta gets a little bit too much leeway. I think he was forced into a change of tact after the Willian debacle and all of that. I think he was told that wasn't Arteta's choice to go younger. I'm 100% convinced of that. And I think he was told you were going younger. And I think that's one of the few times Mikel Arteta has been told anything at Arsenal. I think most decisions are Mikel Arteta's. I think this is one where Edu needs, as the sporting director, to really stand up and say, look, you want to keep Reiss Nelson, tell me why. Because if you're going to keep him and play him 200 minutes, we're not paying £5.2 million this year for you to keep him and play him 200 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's what it is. I just don't think Arteta has been told, if you're not going to use them, we sell them. I think he's being indulged a little bit by allowing to have this massive bloated squad that he never uses.
See, I agree like 80%. I would just say it's not Arteta. Well, I don't think it's Arteta that's like, no, offer Reiss Nelson 100K a week.
Oh, I do. Maybe not offer him 100 grand a week, but I 100% think Arteta is the one that pushed for that deal to get done. I don't think that deal gets... Reiss Nelson is not an important enough player for anyone behind the scenes to go, my God, we've got to get him tied down. The only way he gets tied down, I think, is if Arteta demands it. That not telling you what salary to put him on, but I think Mikel Arteta has demanded that contract got done at whatever cost, and that's the result.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I can see that.
So the other interesting one. So let's just do this quick with Smith Rowe. So where do you think it's going to end up? Because I'm starting to think maybe we will push up to 30 million, especially if we can get another club involved. Right now, it just seems to be Fulham.
In Crystal Palace.
Yeah, I don't know how much of that is real and how much of that is smoke. Again, we just seem to use Crystal Palace quite a lot.
We do, yeah.
Stuff. So I don't know. Because we've sent a few players on loan there, right? Like Ashley Cole was there, obviously. Chamak was there. Julian Gray. I don't know if you remember him, a left back that never quite made it. He went on loan there. Palace seems to get mentioned whenever any of our players come up. I think probably because they're in London and they're in the Premier League. So I don't know how true that is. Right now,
Fulham is too.
Yeah, well, right now we only know for sure of Fulham's interest, though, right? Like Fulham, we have confirmed interest. I think Palace, I don't know. So where do you think this ends up?
Okay, just to be as objective as possible, I think that Smith Rowe would move. I think the offer is going to have to be some kind of combination of maybe, and don't laugh because I am serious. I think it's going to have to be something like a 30 million base with maybe a 5 million add-on. So we're looking at like 35 million or a sell-on maybe instead of add-ons. I'd like to see him, like, just as a big Smith Rowe fan, I'd like to see him go to Fulham because I've got a lot of respect for the club. They're in London and in the Prem or even abroad, Well, I'd hate to see him go to Leipzig, but I know they were interested in the past. But yeah, I think basically the club is gonna kind of dig their heels in on Emil. I think they'll be happy to keep him and use him even if he makes 8 appearances in a season, unless they get what they think he's about worth. And they'll do that more than Eddie and Reiss, by the way.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think that price would be fair. He's not on the same wages because he signed his contract a lot earlier. So he's not on the same wages as Nelson and Nketiah.
Yep.
And I think that makes the sale price probably easier to get up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be a fair fee. I would expect it to be more like 20 rising to 30, where I would expect it, but I would the fee that you're talking about, I think that is a reasonable fee. I don't think that's an unreasonable thing to demand. Now, whether Fulham would pay it or not is another matter. But yeah, I don't think that's an unreasonable fee. And now this is the one that I find the most interesting of them, and that's Eddie, because you've got a young English striker who at various times in his career has looked like a player that you go, yeah, he could get 15 goals in the Premier League for a lower mid-table side. And then he's looked at other times, you look at him and you go, well, he's probably a middle of the championship player that's never going to quite make it. Do you know what I mean? Like, is he Guy Whittingham? Or if you don't remember that, that's a musty reference right there. But, one of them players that isn't quite good enough for the Premier League, but will probably bang in quite... Or Benica Phobe. There you go, Benica Phobe.
Yeah, there you go.
There's a good analogy. So I find the Eddie one interesting. I just can't bring myself to believe the Marseille links, the Palace links. Like we said, I think that's just been made up to the point where people believe it. They call it the Mandela effect, right? Where when people believe that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 80s, and if enough people say it, then people start treating it as fact. And I think Palace and Ketia, we're kind of there with them. I don't know. I do believe the club are going to want serious money for Nketiah. I'm just not sure anyone's going to pay it.
I do think this might be the most difficult one to price, because Eddie's range is so insane. It really depends on like the last game he played, right?
Yeah.
like I mean, Eddie could bag a brace and he'd be worth 40 million.
Yeah.
But then he could go missing 3 games in a row, or make, even not even go missing, but just get, 3.
Not score, right? We talked about this. We talked about this 2 years ago on the pod.
Yep.
Eddie's value is completely determined by did he score or didn't he score?
Yeah.
His value.
His last game.
It is completely determined by that.
Yep. And so that makes Eddie very difficult. And he's got a decent history, right? But it's not lights out or anything.
No.
It's not super consistent. It's bunchy, right? Is that the right word?
I don't think it's not great. When you look at his overall record, he's not great. He doesn't do well coming off the bench. Fine, whoever signs him is probably going to be signing him to be a starter. But if you look at a starter, he played 12 games and scored 5 goals for us at the start of last season, and you think, oh, well, that's not too bad. Then you realise 3 of them come in one game against Sheffield United. So all of a sudden, he scored in 3 games out of 12. Is what's really got on there. And they were Fulham, Sheffield United, and I can't remember who the other goal came against. But it's just, I don't know. It's
probably no one good.
He's a real tough one to price. And like I said, there seems to be smoke. I just don't know if there's fire behind any of these rumors. So Palace and Marseille, I just can't imagine those actually being moves that come off for Eddie, but we'll see. And the other boys, there's been no real rumours about, right? Patino, Cricket's absolutely nothing there. Thomas Partey is an interesting one. So as far as I'm aware, there's been a lot. Again, Saudi Arabia is one that I do not think is going to happen for Thomas Partey. I don't think that there's anything there whatsoever. I think it's another one that fans are talking into reality when it's not really true. I don't see any way Partey leaves this summer, because I don't see any way anyone takes him on, and I don't think he has any desire at all to leave. I think we've got him for another year. We're on opposite ends on this. I know you don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a bit of a disaster.
Whoa. Okay. I think he's a very good number 6.
I don't. I think he was. I don't think he is now.
I understand where you're coming from, and I do think we look significantly more open when he plays at 6. And I just I'll put this out there right now. I think Rice should be our 6. But it doesn't look like that's the direction the club is going.
See, we're on opposites on that as well, because I don't think Rice should be our 6. I don't. I think he should be the left 8, and I think the 6 needs to be someone who's more comfortable on the ball, like Thomas Partey used to be. And that's the other thing. When he came back last year, Partey, and we know he takes a while to hit his stride, and that's fine. I think when he come back, I don't think his passing was as sharp and as on as it was.
It wasn't.
I just think I think the injuries have taken a toll. I think he's lost it. And I think this is a disaster if he stays, because I think if he stays, I don't think we'll bring anyone else in. I don't see how you bring another player in if Partey and Jorginho are there. I think if he stays, we're going to start the season with Partey, Rice, and Ødegaard as that midfield. And I think that will be the case until Partey gets injured. And then Jorginho's going to come in. And then Partey will come back from injury. He'll come in, stink the place out, get injured again. Jorginho will come in. And I think that's the cycle we're going to see this season. And that's the bit that concerns me. That's the one thing. I think we'll win the title this year. But that is the one area that really concerns me. I think everything else we can overcome. The left-back issue, I think we can overcome. Kai Havertz at forward, I think that's fine. This Jorginho Partey thing at 6, that is the bit for me where I am the most concerned.
Yeah, mate. I mean, I can't lie. I share your concern. And I think that is the most likely cycle. He's barely played more than 18 Premier League games.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be shocked if he played 20 games. If he stays, you'd be shocked if he played 20 games next season.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah. And so, I mean, it's just there's no reliability there. And I do think that age is starting to catch up with him as well.
He was never the fastest and he was never the most athletic, but he has now definitely lost a step. And part of his thing was the ability to wriggle out and spot a pass. And I don't know, he just didn't look the same player at all last year. Even after he'd had a run of games when he was back, he did not. The defensive deficiencies, we've got such a good back line, you can kind of cover that a little bit. I just think if the forward motion goes 10%, then why are you covering for it? Do you know what I mean? Like, I think we'll be far worse as a team. If the Partey of the end of last season starts 20 games for us, I think we'll be a worse team.
I'm curious, would you just you, Gaff, would you be curious or sorry, would you pick Jorginho over Partey?
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah, I think I would. And I'm no Jorginho fan. Everyone knows that. I don't think he's a great player. I think he's fine. But yeah, I think I would take what I know with Jorginho over what I don't know with Thomas Partey. If you're telling me we're getting Thomas Partey from the start of the season before last, for that 6-7 months at the start, then of course I'm taking that Thomas Partey 100%. I just don't think that Thomas Partey exists anymore. And I think that the likely thing is that we're getting the Partey from the end of last year. And yes, I would take this Jorginho over that Thomas Partey.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact of the matter is that he's dealt with more injuries here at Arsenal than he ever has in his career. And he's not coming back like fit from these at all. And his body is like breaking down faster.
It reminds me of Kieran Gibbs, right? Kieran Gibbs. Yeah. I loved Kieran Gibbs when he come through. I thought he had the potential to be a fantastic player. But with every injury, it become harder to come back. With every injury, he's missed more development time. And I know Partey had done most of his development, so it's not kind of the same thing in that. But I think with every injury, Gibbs came back a little bit worse. And I think that's what's happening with Thomas Partey now. Every injury is leading first off to more injuries, but also to him losing a step and just coming back a little bit worse every time.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, actually, that makes a lot of sense. And I wouldn't be surprised if something like that was happening, because it is really a shame how fastly he's fallen apart,
Yeah, he's declined. All right. Well, the only other two, Calafiori, that looks like there's a little stumbling block in that Bologna are trying to buy the sell-on clause from Basel, who are saying no. Why
ridiculous, right? Yeah.
But that looks like that one's going to drag on for a little bit. I think we'll probably get the deal done in the end, but I can see that dragging on for a little bit. And Mikel Merino, again, we're back to my point where if you buy squad players, it's the fastest way to get worse. And I think Mikel Merino would make us worse if he was on the pitch. I'm not saying he's a terrible player, but I just don't think he's a great player either. And I don't think that's who we should be looking at regardless of the price.
Yeah, I mostly agree. I wouldn't hate the signing for the price, but I'm kind of with you on the squad player thing. Yeah, I'd much rather just have pure upgrade. It does remind me of Arteta's signing a bit, but
Yeah, but the Arteta signing come off the back of that 8-2 at Old Trafford, and we were in disarray. The squad now is just in a completely different place. We're looking to go to the next level and get 90 points. Like, that side wasn't going to get 90 points. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and Gav, that's actually a really good point. Something I hadn't really thought about. The timing of that signing. I will say though, he's 28, a ton of experience in like central midfield and defensive midfield. Values kind of at an all-time high despite his age. He had he's starting to kind of have a decent Spain career. At 20 million euros, I still don't hate this signing. Would I rather see someone like Nico Williams on the wing? Of course, like 100%. I'm not arguing that at all. But this signing to me, this wouldn't kill me. Especially if we're planning to lose guys like Smith Rowe, Reece Nelson, even Thomas Partey.
Well, I guess this is the way you got to think about it, right? Like, or the duality of it, right? Is this a case of this is a transfer that we're going to do because Partey isn't leaving, therefore we're stuck with Partey and Jorginho. We've got no choice. So the obvious answer is you just bring someone in who can back up Rice, but can also maybe cover in that six a little bit when the inevitable long-term Partey injury happens and Jorginho can't play every game. Is that why we're doing this? Or is it one where, well, Smith Rowe is going, Havertz is now up top, so there's a gap in the squad, so we want to fill that gap in the squad. I don't know which one it is. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. If Partey goes, do we still sign Merino, or do we put all our efforts into signing a more Zubamendi type, not Zubamendi, because I don't think that's ever going to happen, but a more Zubamendi type player if Partey goes and we just leave it alone? Or would it be a case of, well, we would do that, but we're going to sign Merino anyway because we've got a gap behind Declan Rice?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, mate. I guess despite the age difference, if we're talking about like the difference between like Merino and Onana from Everton, I think I'm taking Merino. Which I know like long term isn't it, but I mean he's going to offer us the technical stability that we're used to in the six, where I'm just not sure Onana delivers, even though I think he's a brilliant defensive midfielder.
I think that's the thing. Like I haven't seen enough of Merino to make a firm judgment on this, but from the numbers, I'm not sure that technical security exists with him. His passing stats are not great. He's been a 75 to 76% passer his entire career. He's a big guy that wins a lot of headers, wins a lot of tackles. Mikel obviously likes that. To me, he seems more of a dollar store Declan Rice than anything like a six. I'm not saying he couldn't play the six.
Or Rodri.
I don't think he's going to be...
Rodri.
Yeah, but Rodri's just a better footballer. So I don't know. I'm just not sure... To me, I don't like the sign. I'll be honest with you. I just don't like it. If this is what they feel they need for the squad, then fine. I heard someone say he's coming in to replace El Neni. 4 minutes off the bench? like you think the Spanish international is going to be happy with that? Of course, he's not coming in to replace El Neni. So yeah, I don't know. It's. Are you all worried with the people that we've been linked with, right? And bear in mind, there's been no real serious links to Nico Williams, despite us wanting there to be. There's not. The links that have been made, they seem to be players that I don't really think come in and make us better. They might come in and improve the squad depth, but they don't come in and make us better. Are you concerned about that? Because I still think we need to get better as a team. And I don't know that I've seen many links that actually look like that's what's going to happen.
Damn, Gav, this is actually a really good point. Even Calafiori, who I am pretty excited about. I don't think he gives us the offensive cutting edge that Zinchenko does. I think he just kind of splits the difference. I got to be honest. I'm not super excited about anybody we've been linked to this summer. I don't think anybody just like is a home run. You know what I mean?
Obviously there's a long way to go, right? We've still got a month and a half of this window open, and it can change. Things can happen late, and people can become available. Mbappe's going to go and join up with Real Madrid. Rodrigo may get pissed off. He might be available. Do you know what I mean? Like if someone big comes available, then it's a different story. There might be an opportunity that comes up to get someone in, and it changes everything. But it just seems to me the way that this summary is being talked about by a lot of journalists who know a lot of stuff it just sounds to me like this is a consolidation summer, and I fear consolidation summers because I just don't think long term that augurs well for the club when you have a summer where you go, we'll just bring the floor up. I don't see it. I just don't think it works.
Yeah, and I mean, we had quite a bit of that in late stage Wenger era, didn't we? And I've got a bit of a fear of that as well. I'm hoping this isn't the case. I mean, we're it's a I mean, I guess not overly unique, but with the Copa America and Euros, the in Olympics now as well. I know the summer's a little bit weird with all the tournaments. I'm hoping some of these rumors kind of turn around or, get like nonsensed into the ground. But yeah, mate, I got to be honest. I agree. Nobody is really raising the needle for me that we're really linked to. Would I take Calafiori and Nico Williams? Of course, but they don't. They don't send me like we're going to be a guaranteed title contender next year.
I think Nico Williams would be a serious addition.
He would.
I just don't think that's going to happen. Like, I don't see any way we get Nico Williams. I think that would be a serious addition. Calafiori, I think Calafiori would make us better. I don't know how much he would make us better. I mean, for the simple fact that to the end of last year, we couldn't play Zinchenko. Do you know what I mean? Like, and if you're telling me it's Calafiori or Tomiyasu or Kivior at left back, then I think Calafiori is head and shoulders above the other two, like way above them. And again, to reiterate again, I do not believe that Jurriën Timber is going to play a serious part of left back. And I think if he does go to left back, I don't think anyone's going to be impressed with Jurriën Timber after 3 months because it's not his position. It's not fair. He hasn't got a left foot. I don't think that Jurriën Timber can play long term at left back. I think he can do what Kivior did, come in for a couple of games, we win, and everyone goes, look how great this is. And then I think the flaws are going to show, and I don't think it's fair to him. He's also coming back off that ACL, and the season after an ACL, I don't think anyone should be surprised if there's some niggles show up here, right? A little hamstring here, a little groin here, a calf there, because he's not, his body's still getting used to it. So I do think the Calafiori one would be a good sign. I don't know. I worry about a lot of these raise the floor, not the ceiling type signings, because I think all you do is you add a load of players that you never want to play. And where Arteta is so wedded to the idea of these are my players and this is who I'm going to play and I only change the team if I absolutely have to. I don't know. Like Mikel Merino, for example, when is Mikel Arteta ever going to say, I know what I'm going to do today. I'll sit Declan Rice down and play Mikel Merino. Like, at what point will Arteta actually do that? I don't even know he'd do that in the League Cup if we got past the third round.
Yeah. No. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
So anyway, let's see. These rumors are starting to heat up now, though. We've seen some of the outgoing ones start to heat up. I think some dominoes are going to fall over the next few weeks as players start getting back to their clubs and these things kick on. And maybe we are operating very much in, well, we do want a winger and we do want a midfielder, but we've got to get Reece and we've got to get ESR out of the door before the next one comes in. Maybe that's what it is, and maybe that's why it's been so quiet on that front. Yeah,
I mean, it's been quiet for most clubs, though.
It has.
If you think about it, yeah. I mean, I know United just signed that French kid, Yori, right?
Lenny Yoro.
Yeah, Yoro. Sorry. I don't know much about him personally.
I know if you're playing an 18-year-old centre back in the Premier League, you're going to get fucked. That's what I do know. If he's coming, and it's mad. So they're comparing, and I don't want to turn this into a debate on that, but they're comparing him to Saliba. We signed Saliba at that age and sent him back on loan 3 times.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Like if you're going to play an 18-year-old in the Premier League, you are going to get whacked quite a few times. He is going to get ripped to shreds, and he may end up being Joel Alan Boomsong because of it. Do you know what I mean? Like a highly rated young kid comes in, gets ripped apart in the Premier League, and he's just never the same player again. I think that's a real, and the money they're paying him, 150 grand a week. I don't know. Yeah. I think that is that's a big risk for them. A big risk.
You know who it sounds like? Anthony Martial.
Yeah.
It's almost the exact same situation.
Yeah.
Signed as an 18-year-old from Liga.
I don't know.
Paid big
we'll
money,
see how,
huge. Yeah.
we'll see how that one plays out. But I think throwing an 18-year-old kid in, he's going to lead to disaster. I don't see any good that comes of that.
I'm just, I'm watching the other top six. I mean, I know, Tottenham, they signed that, really promising kid, Gray.
Archie Gray from Leeds.
Yeah, Archie Gray. Yep. And he looks like he's, doing okay for them.
He's another one that's not coming in to walk into their team and make their team better immediately, right? Like I don't see that as being the thing. I have heard that, well, first of all, it was reported that Man City were in for Dani Olmo, and then it was reported that Man City are definitely not in for Dani Olmo. So that was an interesting one. So PSG are looking at the Portuguese guy, João Neves, that we were looking at. I just wonder, does that shake a little Fabian Ruiz loose in Paris?
I don't know about that, but based on what I've read about the João Neves transfer to PSG, it seems shady as shit.
PSG. It's PSG.
Yeah, it is. I know, and it's Mendes. Mendes.
Yeah. If another midfielder going in there, if
hey mate, I'd take Fabian Ruiz.
And see, I think Ruiz or Olmo. I'd like either of them for that left hand side. I'm not sure either of them are going to happen, but I would.
Is Olmo still at Wolves?
What's that?
Olmo?
No, he's at Leipzig.
Oh, who am I thinking of?
I don't know who you're thinking of, but Dani Olmo was Leipzig. Dani Olmo came through at Barcelona, and then I believe he went Red Bull Salzburg, and then on to Leipzig. I think is the way Dani Olmo's career went.
Yeah, there's a big they were in the same age group together when they won like the U21 Euros or World Cup or whatever, and it doesn't matter. It's fine.
Yeah, I can't think who you're talking about. It will come to me at some point, I'm sure, but at the minute, picture of
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, mate. Well, it's been quite a long second half, this one. So
it has.
Let's end it there. And we'll be back later on. We'll go through. We've actually got actual football next week. When's the Bournemouth game? Is it Tuesday? The Bournemouth game? I think it's Tuesday. Let me check my calendar.
I actually haven't synced my calendar with Arsenal.
Well, when you do, it syncs for 2 different days. It's going to sync on the 24th and the 25th. So I'm not sure which one it is, but it's either Tuesday or is that Wednesday, Thursday? No, that's Wednesday, Thursday. It's either Wednesday or Thursday we face Bournemouth. But I'm guessing that's going to be a skeleton team for that one.
I think you're probably right. Yeah. The first friendly usually is,
Yeah, and then I expect a few more familiar faces in there for the Liverpool game. So we'll see about that.
It's Podence. That's who I was thinking of. Danny Podence.
Oh, Podence. Yeah, he's gone. Yeah, he went to Greece. I think he went to Olympiakos, maybe.
My bad.
I actually quite liked Podence. He's a bit lightweight, but I liked him. I thought he was a good player.
Yeah, I always conflate the two because they're decently similar.
Okay.
But yeah, sorry about that. Yeah,
fair enough. All right. Okay, mate. Well, we'll leave it there. We're back next week where there's actual football to talk about, maybe some more rumours. Obviously, the club will have some events stateside that we'll probably talk about as well. So until then, have a good night, mate. And thank you for listening, everybody. Bye-bye.
Hey, bye-bye.